Welcome. Thank you guys so much for stopping by. I'm Jeremy, and movies are terrible. And joining me on the August 29th edition of the show, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back, Caleb Miles.
Hey, how's it going, man?
I'm good. You know how on some podcasts, like, when they start the feed, they're, like, in mid-conversation already?
No, who does that?
I don't know. I don't know. Some people, I kind of like it because it's like, oh, I didn't see you come in there. You know what I'm talking about?
It's like they turn. I just picture someone like reading a book and going, "Oh, hello."
Yeah.
Like that.
I wish we could do that
in the rocking chair. I had that rocking chair in the back, and then I could do that. Perfect.
I don't know, man. There's something about just knowing that they drop in at the most fucked up part of whatever conversation that we're having. That I think there's something there.
I think so. There's definitely something there.
Well, what's up, everybody? We do, again, appreciate you stopping by to check out this week's edition of the show. We got some pretty cool topics to discuss with you this evening. Man, I was taking notes till the very to the buzzer this afternoon because, well, we'll get there, but we're going to talk a little bit about what we've been watching over the past week before we jump into this week's movie news headlines head first, and then we are going to discuss this week's topic, which is going to be major changes coming to the Rotten Tomatoes website, as well as just kind of our general thoughts about film criticism as far as Rotten Tomatoes and the way that whole website has affected the industry as a whole. So yeah, what's been going on, man? I was telling you before we went live that I went and got a crown put on this morning at the dentist. You had anything that equally or greater than exciting than that?
No, nothing equally. I shaved my beard off. That was kind of exciting.
How long's it been?
Since I shaved it all the way off.
Mm-hmm.
So I had the beard for a while, then I shaved it off last night, but I already got this much back because I'm a hairy bastard.
You're a werewolf.
So I really am, and I've been drinking LaCroix. I am not sponsored. I wish I was. This is passion fruit, but I think it should be called foot flavored. I don't even know why the hell I'm drinking it. It's absolutely disgusting. I don't even know why, and I keep drinking it.
You feel good about it though, and they kind of are like an acquired taste, like beer. Like they're crisp. Really, they have very little flavor. I think my favorite are the they're like some sort of orange fusion. There's the standard cans like you have, and then there's the more narrow, almost like Red Bull. Yes. And there's one that's like a cherry limeade or some shit, and it's good.
That's the one my favorite one. I just ran out of it. It's the one, it's yellow and it's a cherry limeade one. That's the only one that's actually tastes good.
I was gonna say it's the one that doesn't suck.
Yeah, and I drink them all, because at work they have a vending machine where you press them and they come out for free.
Oh, nice.
And so I kind of got me hooked on them, and now I buy them at home. And every time I'm at home, I'm drinking them. Like, what the hell's the point of this?
The only ones I can't fuck with are the coconut flavored ones. They just remind me of drinking. Yeah, no, stay away. I mean, if you go to the beach often, it tastes like Panama Jack smells, like tanning lotion. I can't.
There's things that are like that for me. Like like when people eat like lemon pastries, and it tastes like toilet. Like, it tastes like, why would anyone do this? There's things that the smell just ruins it for me.
Yeah, man. Actually, Krispy Kreme's doing like a 10-day limited run of their lemon glazed donuts, and that didn't even sound good to me, man.
So I'm a hot take. I don't like Krispy Kreme.
Oh, get the fuck out of here.
I don't. No, go to Krispy Kreme and order a chocolate donut. They put chocolate and then they still glaze that bitch.
So it's one or the other.
That's why you had to get a crown. You've been eating Krispy Kreme donuts.
True as it may be, I'm not gonna stop. Yeah. So I got something kind of cool coming up this weekend. Are you familiar with Abigail Spencer, the actress?
I probably, but I'm horrible with names.
She is a, man, this is bad because I don't really know anything that she's been in. She is actually from Gulf Breeze, which is the neighboring town, kind of where I grew up. And she left the area relatively early on, maybe when she was 17 or 18, to pursue a career in acting. She ended up getting super successful. I saw her in The Haunting in Connecticut, which was a bad little horror movie, but she's done great for herself on television. I think the show's called Timeless, and it's on CBS. And anyways, she's doing like a homecoming party at the Interlight, which her dad owns. And me and my buddy Holden, who is a fellow podcaster, movie reviewer guy, are going to go actually interview her on Saturday.
Oh, cool.
I'm kind of nervous about it.
Because you don't know what the fuck she's done with her career.
Yeah, and because she's like out of this world gorgeous too. So I don't know. I don't normally get nervous about it, but it's like there's going to be probably 1,000 people there. We're going in there to ask her questions. I'm going to be recording the thing, and I just don't know how familiar Holden or myself are with her stuff. So I was kind of deciding whether or not I should try to, I don't know, catch one episode.
Are you nervous because you don't know what you're talking about, or because she's out of this world gorgeous?
Yes.
Both.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, the pretty woman thing has never bothered me. Pretty women are a dime a dozen. Like, if she has a cool personality, that kind of intimidates me, which is weird.
Yes.
So, like, I could be talking to, like, a girl who's not that attractive, but if she's really cool, I kind of turn into nerdy awkward Taylor. But, like, a pretty girl with no personality, all day.
Yeah, and I don't know which way. It could go either way. I think I'm kind of with you on that, which is, it's interesting, isn't it? It's like, the intimidation is more just from the fact that they're, like, could potentially be way cooler than me.
Mm-hmm. Everyone's way cooler than me, so
yeah, that's fair.
I get used to it. I have Ninja Turtle tattoos. I mean, there's more people that are cooler than me.
Has anybody ever busted your chops about that?
No. The thing that I hate that I get, because I have an anime sleeve and a Ninja Turtle sleeve, is the exact opposite. Everyone actually stops me and compliments me on them. But what I hate is, like, I was actually telling a guy this at work. One night I was out to dinner with my wife, and we're having this like heartfelt moment. She's like holding my hand, and we're talking. And our waiter, who'd already ordered from us once, and pointed out my anime sleeve, walked up and was like, "So what else do you have on your sleeve?" And I told him real quick, like, "Okay, dude, go away." Then he continues to want to talk anime, and I finally had to get to the point. I was like, "Hey, man, trying to have a moment with my wife.
Yeah,
like at the dinner, like not really the time I want to talk anime with you, you know." And so I get that, like, people always want to touch my tattoos. Can I touch them? What does it feel like? It feels like skinny, fucking weirdo. It's
people
like,
want to touch them
all the time. Can I touch them? You know, women mainly want to touch my tattoos. I'm like, don't fucking touch me. I don't know you.
Just straight up, next time it happens, the second they touch you, scream just as fucking loud as you can.
The first time it happened, no lie, it was a woman in a comic book store, and she was wearing the puffy shirt from Seinfeld, like the exact same shirt.
Nice.
Like that was the first time it ever happened, and I was like, whoa, this is weird. And since then, it's happened 30, 40 times.
No
easily.
kidding. No kidding.
Yeah, it's unreal. So I guess that's what I've been watching. I guess it's just my life.
Yeah, well, we're going to go ahead and jump into that. Before we do get into this first topic, guys, do us a favor. If you are enjoying the show, take just a second, help spread the word. We will wait as you literally open another browser window right now and say, guys, you got to come over here and check out this awesome fucking podcast where these guys are talking about a bunch of random stuff that we don't even really know for sure. But they're having a good time, and we're having a good time, and you should come have a good time, too. So, yeah, now that I got that shameless plug out of the way, like, share, subscribe, do it. Yeah. So, I've watched a bunch of stuff since the last time we got up, man. There's this movie called Arizona that stars Danny McBride. It takes place in Arizona, and it's about the burst of the housing bubble back in 2008, 2009. He was like a disgruntled homeowner who ends up getting into an altercation with his real estate agent, which leaves him dead. And then it's like a comedy of errors, like a kind of like Very Bad Things, but with real estate. Have you seen a trailer for this or anything?
Never even heard of it.
Isn't that weird? Yeah, I hadn't heard anything about it until the week that it came out. It was almost like they tried to bury it, and I gotta say, it's in very bad taste, which I kind of liked about it. A lot of gun violence, a lot of violence against women. It was very over the top. It wasn't supposed to be like it was a comedy, and you're not supposed to root for any of the people. Like, they're all just horrible people. So, yeah, I don't know. I think if I were going to try to quantify it, which is something we'll kind of discuss a little bit later, I'd probably give it like a soft 3, like a 2.5 out of 5 or something like that. Are you a Danny McBride fan?
I cannot stand him.
Really? Hot take.
He's hit or miss for me. I either really like him and think he's brilliant, or I think he's unwatchable. So I would say I dislike him is actually too much. Like, there's certain things where I think he is just hilarious, but then there's other things like the Eastbound and Eastbound and Down. Hated it. Hated every second of it. Yeah.
Did you see the one where he was like the martial arts teacher, the Foot Fist Way or something like that? Yeah. That was funny.
Hated it.
Did you?
Yeah, which is weird. I would assume that would be more the type of movie I would like. Yeah. I don't know why. There's something about him that is weird to me.
He kind of reminds me of Florida Trash, so I can 100% relate. You know what I mean?
I can definitely see that. Yeah.
So I saw Happy Time Murders, the Brian Henson Dirty Puppet movie.
How is it?
I don't know, man. I enjoyed it. Like, for the puppet stuff alone, like, if you're super geeky about puppets, you're gonna like the movie. But as far as the story, it's just a fucking average comedy, you know?
Did you ever see Greg the Bunny, the show?
No.
So Greg the Bunny is Happy Time Murders. It's a world like a Roger Rabbit type of world where there's puppets. It's Seth Green's the main character, and his best friend, roommate's a little bunny who gets involved in a kid's show, but he's just an actor in a kid's show. It's phenomenal.
Well, yeah, man, I will have to give that a watch, because I do love the premise of it. I like the concept of it was like a film noir with a kind of murder mystery in it, and just like you said, Roger Rabbit. That's the closest comparison that I could come up with to it. So yeah, again, it's like a soft 3. I wouldn't not recommend it. These are two movies that both got shat on by Rotten Tomatoes, but I find that movies that are a little more divisive sometimes can be more exciting to go in and see, because you could fall on either side of the fence. So sometimes I like movies that are in that like 60, 70 percentile, because they might be too subversive for mainstream audiences, but there still might be something for me.
I agree. Sometimes I like something for like 30%, and I'm like, what are you guys talking about? Did you watch the same movie?
Right, yes. Happy Time Murders is that.
Really?
Oh, yeah. I think it's... Well, shit, I'll pull it up real quick. I know that it's not...
while you're doing that, I finally finished Disenchantment. I don't know if I told you that. I finished Disenchantment, so got the final episode. I loved it. I actually am going to go back and watch it again. It is a lot more serious than Futurama, which I enjoy.
Oh, okay.
I really like that. I started watching Innocence on Netflix original British show. The trailer looks phenomenal. It also has a really cool remake of Where Is My Mind, Pixie song.
Oh, yeah.
And it's really cool, the song is. So off the trailer, I was so hooked. Watched first episode, drug a little, but the concept was so cool. Turned it off halfway through the second episode. It's just, sometimes I find British stuff a little, the pacing and the tone a little dry. And,
sure.
and it was just dragging even too much for me, the guy who loves slow burn.
Right. So, Happy Time Murders, 22 on Rotten Tomatoes. I finished Sharp Objects on Sunday, and that show ended up being really good. The final episode of the season was really frustrating for the first half of it, but they turned it around, and it ended up being one of my favorite shows that I've seen over probably the past couple of years.
Yeah, I need to definitely check it out. It's one of those things that I've thought about looking into, because it's HBO, you said, right? Or Showtime?
It's HBO. Mm-hmm. And it's only, I think, going to be one season. It was like an 8-episode kind of mini series. And I like it when they're tight little stories that have a fucking point to exist. They've actually got an ending planned out and stuff. So it's a tight little show, you know?
That's why I love anime so much. Anime is 26 episodes on a whole, 13 episodes, and it's one story. Because of that, they know where they're going. There is an end in sight instead of American shows where they're like, we have a concept, but we're going to drag it out as long as we can make enough money on it, and then it tends to go to shit.
Yeah, Walking Dead.
Yeah. Well, I actually still like Walking Dead. I haven't seen the last season. Oh, I did watch Fear of the Walking Dead. I started.
Yeah?
Just because I kind of was craving some zombie stuff. It's pretty bad.
See, and I like the first 2 or 3 episodes because it's the opposite end of the country, for one thing, so you've got a more urban take on the same kind of... And that it took it all the way back to the outbreak, I thought was kind of cool. But, man, there are so few characters to fucking like in that show.
That's right on the nose for me. I was talking to my wife, and she goes, why isn't this we like? I was like, because every person is a shitty, awful, horrible person.
From the very beginning.
Like in L.A., so it's pretty realistic. But,
yeah.
But yeah, from the beginning, I hated every character, and I was just like with Walking Dead, you actually like some. You see them. Some you start off like Carol, I hated, who I ended up growing to love.
Sure.
Characters Rick, I hated. I actually like him now that he's a complete asshole much more. But then you see characters that start off great, that you end up hating, and there's this ebb and flow. Everyone here just started off on hating for me, and that just didn't draw me in.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I hear, just like with The Walking Dead, they're fucking killing major characters off. I think it's a way to keep the ratings up, but then eventually it's like, what's left to recognize of the show? But then with The Walking Dead, I think they really do plan on running it past Michonne's gone, Rick's already out halfway through the season, so they're just going to ride this bitch till the wheels fall off.
Robert Kirkman said the thing about Walking Dead is it's not about those specific characters. It's about the characters, but it's not about those specific characters. Yeah. It's more about the world. And honestly, some of my favorite characters came across later in the show anyway, and aren't of the original cast. So as long as they keep replacing them with really good characters, I will be happy with it. I'll watch a zombie TV show as long as it's even halfway decent.
And I can understand that. I can respect that in itself. My biggest guy was Glenn, and then my next biggest guy was Abraham, and so it was like, I give up. Fuck you guys.
No, Glenn is my wife's biggest crush ever too. I always had to hear about how hot Glenn was and how she wants to marry him every time we watched it.
Great. So you're like, good riddance, you motherfucker.
Good bastard. No, Glenn was my dude. I like Glenn.
I hear he's pretty good in that movie. I think you might have actually told me about it. Mayhem?
Yes.
I need to check that out.
That's my movie. It's so grindhouse, edgy, intentionally tongue-in-cheek. I think that's why some people didn't like it, is because they went in thinking it's... I think the trailer calls it Office Space meets The Purge, and that is the best breakdown I've heard of it.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, that sounds fun. I like those things. Those are those are things I like. So also, let's see. I caught Fargo season 3, episode 1 and 2, and goddamn, dude, Noah Hawley is a beast. That's the guy that also is the showrunner of FX's Legion, and he is just he has got style that is so distinct. His musical choices and the way that he frames shots and just weird little visual techniques that he does that I'm just fucking hooked. Ewan McGregor plays twin brothers, so he's playing opposite himself in it, and they could not be more opposite than each other. And then Mary Elizabeth Winstead is kind of the femme fatale of the season, and it's just good. Have you seen any of it?
So I've never seen any of this TV show or the movie. I've never seen any Fargo. That's a total blind spot of mine.
Are you a Coen Brothers guy?
Yeah, I like Coen Brothers. I'm not a huge fanboy of them, but yeah.
Yeah, Fargo's good. Fargo's good.
Yeah, everyone's told me about it. It's just one of those ones I never got around to for whatever reason.
Oh yeah. Like The Godfather for me. I mean, everybody's got those blind spots. Have you seen Godfather?
I'll tell you what. Yeah, I've seen all 3 of them. They're not that good.
None. Ooh.
They're okay.
Our viewers are dropping as we speak, Caleb.
They're okay.
Yikes. We're down to 3. Oh, wait a second. That's all we've had the whole time.
They thought about it.
Yeah.
Godfather, I agree. I think it's I'm trying to, it's been years. Granted, I was like 15 the last time I saw him, so I probably should go back to watch them.
Sure.
But 2, if I remember, is pretty good. That's the best one. But I don't know, like the others I didn't care for.
So we we had a trailer come out a couple days ago that I was really excited about. Dario Argento Dario Argento is Asia Argento's father, which, man, that's a never-ending saga if you guys don't know about that. It just came out this week that like Rose McGowan totally went back on her support of Asia Argento, and that actually she'd been having like sexual relation with that kid since he was like 12 years old.
And receiving naked pictures since he was 12.
Yeah, it's classy. So anyway, she's a piece of shit. I'm sure her dad was too. Again, Holly weird. But he was a pretty cool filmmaker back in the 1970s. He's one of the guys that was responsible for the giallo genre, which is kind of the what's that word that I'm looking for? The inception of the slasher genre, the prototype of it. So I've been a fan of Dario Argento's stuff. There's one called Deep Red, there's one called Tenebrae, and then there's Suspiria. And of the three of them, my favorite is by far Tenebrae. Suspiria, I set all this up to tell you that I actually sat down to watch Suspiria today so that when we talked about it, I would know what the fuck I was talking about and have a frame of reference for it. I've
seen it years ago, but I don't remember. Like, it's one of those ones I remembered liking it at the time, but I could not even tell you what the plot of the movie is.
Yeah, that's how it was for me too. And to be honest, there's really not a plot to it. It is very it's choppy, man. You know, things happen in an order, but like there's not a real strong narrative or like a lot going on underneath the surface. But what I think is the most distinctive thing about that original movie is the color correction, or the way that they use different colored lights in it. There are scenes that are completely red or completely blue. There's lots of really bright and bold primary colors in it, and it just gives it a really distinct style. And that's something that when people are kind of trying to recapture that style from the 80s, they imitate that more than it was really even used in movies originally. So I don't know. It's a movie that's definitely a product of its time, and it works almost better like an art exhibit than it does like a narrative story, you know?
It's more like a visual piece that like you should watch if you're like us and into film and you want to see some technique. More that type of movie.
Yeah, 100%. The sets are real cool looking. Oh fuck, dude! I also went and saw 2001: A Space Odyssey in IMAX last week, and it was an incredible experience. They did an intermission halfway through. The sound and the remaster were just. It was epic, and 2001 is one of those movies, you know, we've talked about the hype machine and shit, that I've seen it probably a dozen times, but never all the way through because I found it painfully fucking boring. But in that aspect ratio, on that gigantic screen, just from a visual storytelling and like what we were just talking about, the craft of filmmaking and how influential all the effects and everything were, it is, I get the hype around it now, you know, where before I didn't.
That was a movie I grew up on. That's like my dad's arguably favorite film. That and like Blade Runner and Godfather is another one. So I grew up on all of those to an extent. But 2001 is probably my dad's favorite movie of all time.
I get it, man. Stanley Kubrick was a fucking mad genius. But we'll bring it back around to this week's.
Speaking of limited releases, before we move on.
Yeah, of course.
Just while I'm thinking of it. I don't know if you've ever seen Satoshi Kon's Perfect Blue.
No.
One of my all-time favorites. It's an anime. But to call it an anime is almost underselling it. It's so much more than that. One of my all-time favorite psychological horror films, Requiem for a Dream.
Sure.
It was heavily influenced by it. There's even some shots from it that are taken directly from it, like the bathtub scene where she gets down the bathtub straight out of that film. And they are bringing that to, I know, at least Alamo Drafthouse, but I think a couple of other big places are playing it. That I am definitely going to.
I'm looking at the IMDb page right now. When was, let's see.
Blue is amazing.
1997, right there in that sweet spot when anime was like real good.
It's because it's about a girl who becomes a pop star. She already is a pop star.
Oh, yes, I've seen it.
It's a weird movie.
It's awesome. Yeah, dude. Right when you said that, I remembered it, and it's been years, so I couldn't really speak on what exactly happens. But yeah, I remember really enjoying it. So it's a good anime recommendation for you guys if you haven't checked out much of it or kind of want to find one. I would recommend
for people who don't even like anime. I'd recommend that film.
Sure. So let's see here. Yeah, pivoting back to Suspiria, there was a trailer that was released just earlier this week. It's directed by somebody whose name I'm going to fucking butcher, but let's see if I can. Luca Guadagnino? Yeah, sounds good. He's the guy who directed, God, what was the one that can't Call Me By Your Name just last year, and as far as I know, he hasn't done anything in the horror genre before, but man, by the trailers, it looks like it's going to be so good. But again, like the first one wasn't really good because of its story elements. It was good because of that real distinct visuals, and they have totally sepia-toned the trailer and gone in a different direction, which is, it's cool. But what did you think about the trailer?
I think it looks great. It doesn't look, I agree, because again, as someone who doesn't really remember the film, I just remember like the visual more aspect of it. It was those bright colors, those harsh contrasts, and this is, to me, that's almost as much a part of the film as the plot of the film.
Yeah, 100%.
Maybe even more. But I think it's a weird choice, but the trailer looks great. I'm actually really pumped for it. So
it does. To me, it has a more Polanski vibe or a more Kubrick vibe, and those are two pretty solid influences.
Polanski, 100%.
Yeah, that's what I felt. Feels to me a lot like Rosemary's Baby, which is good. People have been saying crazy good things about it. I mean, Chloe Grace Moretz, who obviously, obviously she's invested, but she said she compared it to Stanley Kubrick and said it's the closest to Kubrick of a movie that she's seen. And I really like that the director basically came out and said that he's not remaking the movie. He's remaking the feeling that he got from the first time that he saw the movie as a kid. Okay. And that really speaks to me because the way that we interpret things is so much different, and then the memory becomes like the myth that we adapt from our own life experience years later. So I remember seeing movies like Slaughter High that in the context when I saw it when I was 8 years old or whatever, it felt totally different going back and rewatching it and seeing all the things that sucked about it. You know what I mean?
I agree. It's kind of like I always said with like Force Awakens. Force Awakens is a great remake of a movie that never existed. It's the movie that we think Star Wars is.
Man, that is a great point. I really do feel like, yeah, you nailed that. And when you get in there and you see the visual aesthetic and stuff, it recreates that nostalgia, that feeling. So I like the fact that, you and I both have kind of criticized, the idea of just remaking things and going through the motions over and over again of just pulling up dead properties and reinvigorating them. But I like the fact that the original Suspiria is not all that good, but if there are elements about it that he feels like he can improve on the story. Oh, another good example, Denis Villeneuve's remake or sequel to Ridley Scott's Blade Runner.
Mm-hmm.
To me, like the original Blade Runner is one of those things that I remember the original Blade Runner as being what Blade Runner 2049 is,
I agree. I think Blade Runner, the first one, the original one, is a phenomenal piece of film history, but not a great film itself. And Blade Runner 2049 is one of my favorite movies now of all time.
Yeah, man. I'm right there with you. I think the use of miniatures and the dystopian future, the iconic imagery, all those things from Blade Runner, that everything moving forward had that influence. And I feel like Suspiria is another one of those movies that it hit at the right time to where, up and coming filmmakers took notice of it and looked at a lot of the techniques and kind of implemented them into their own style. So, yeah, I think Kubrick, I think Polanski. I don't really look at Dario Argento as the same category. I look at him more as the John Carpenter character, where real early on in his career, his shit was tight, and then as he went on, it's just like he loses the thing that made him so awesome in the first place, I feel like.
I would agree with that. Yeah, I mean, as I'm not as as familiar with Argento's work as you are. I've seen quite a few of his stuff at some point in time, especially when I was in my big horror film stage, my like teenage years. But I agree, like for me, he was very hit or miss. Some stuff I was just captivated with. Others, I wouldn't say anything I was captivated. Everything I liked more from an inspiration on the genre aspect than actually his films. That's kind of how I feel about his entire catalog.
Yeah, I agree. You know, moving from the father of one sexual predator from the 1970s into another sexual predator from the 1970s, Roman Polanski was cast in the upcoming Tarantino film Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. That does not mean Roman Polanski got cast in the movie, but rather an actor that is playing Polanski got cast in the film. They were running the headline, and I'm like, man, they totally buried the lead on this. What is the guy's name? What do I know him from? And then when I found out who it was, I was like, oh, that's fairly anticlimactic. This guy's never even been in anything.
Yeah, granted, I wish it would have been pretty amazing if he would have cast Roman Polanski as Roman Polanski. It would have made no sense, but still, that would have been pretty
Yeah, I mean, they could go the Marvel route, just de-age him, fucking...
Just de-age him.
Yeah, so Polanski is one of these filmmakers that I really, really responded to watching his movies. Like you were just saying, going through a horror phase. I went through this very studious horror phase where I was like, all right, I'm going to knock out all of the classic horror movies that I haven't seen. And when I started kind of looking at The Tenant and I started looking at Rosemary's Baby and even up to his more recent films like Ghost Writer, this guy is, I said writer so that you didn't think Ghost Writer. But anyways, this is a guy that he is a masterful filmmaker. His Apartment trilogy were all very similar. Repulsion, The Tenant, and Rosemary's Baby. All have very similar themes, but this is a guy that I really like, and he's tied to one of the most notorious crimes in American history. Caleb, will you want to tell us a little bit about the Tate LaBianca murders?
So I actually don't know as much how he's tied to the thing as I probably should.
Oh, well, good. Let me inform you.
Yeah, so you educate me on this because I don't know.
Let me keep talking, please. I love the sound of my own voice. Back in 1970-something, Sharon Tate was an up-and-coming famous actress. She had actually been fairly well established, but we ended up getting... what was it? Some lesbian vampire movie. I can't remember which one it was that Polanski directed her in, and the two of them, I guess, got together during that movie. While all of this is going on in Hollywood, Charles Manson has got the Manson family up in that I don't know the compound or whatever, and the family had already been responsible for a couple murders, but they were trying to kick off a race war between whites and blacks, and this race war was going to bring about some sort of, I don't know, white utopia afterwards or some shit. Anyways, he was able to convince his followers into going out and committing murders. Now, I don't know, because I'm not super informed on it, but I don't know if they were targeted, the Tates, or if it was just coincidence, because Charlie Manson had actually worked with the Beach Boys and all of these things. He was kind of in with the Hollywood crowd. But anyway, so his disciples went into the Tate house, murdered Sharon Tate when she was like 8 or 9 months pregnant, killed the babysitter, whoever else was there, carved pig into Sharon Tate's body, and like basically just went in there and did some really sick shit. They wrote... Helter Skelter. That was kind of the calling card for this race war. Anyways, so all of that shit was going on, and when we found out Quentin Tarantino's 9th movie was going to involve Sharon Tate and Charles Manson, all of the headlines kind of pivoted to Quentin Tarantino's Charles Manson movie. And then I heard that Charles Manson may not have that big of a role in it. I mean, knowing Quentin Tarantino's past...
Yeah, more of a backdrop, I heard.
Yeah. I mean, what do you think of... What is with Brad Pitt and DiCaprio playing an actor and a stuntman, and knowing that Sharon Tate, played by Margot Robbie, is going to be their next door neighbor? How do you think he's going to approach this material?
The thing that makes me excited is I have no idea because of Quentin Tarantino, and that's kind of the best place to be with him. Is I go into his movies very blind, with not a lot of knowledge intentionally, because I just know he's in my opinion, one of the greatest directors of all time, but definitely of our generation. And I like going in that way. first of all, can I say when you just described the white utopia, I just pictured a bunch of people walking around in cargo shorts, and that was like the image I got.
Yeah.
Which is horrible. I'm like, oh, I don't want to live in that world.
They've got bags of Whole Foods and cargo shorts on.
Whole Foods cargo shorts. They're offended by everything. But what? No, so I don't know. I kind of like going in blind, and everything that I've seen about this is pretty interesting. Even I'm sure you saw the clickbaity, the headlines. People were offended because it wasn't a ethnically diverse cast. I'm like, well, it's based on real people, so yeah.
I didn't hear that, but God, it makes sense. Where's Samuel L. Jackson? I mean, he is notably missing from the cast.
People were like outraged. They're like, oh, the cast looks so white, and I'm like, well, as far as I know, it's based on predominantly real people.
Yeah.
You know, and first of all, we've had this conversation. Tell the story you want to tell. If it's all white people, if it's all black people, if it's all gay people, if it's all straight, I don't give a shit. Just tell me a good story.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, 100%.
But that was the thing. And so I just think there's already controversy surrounding this movie, which is already based around a controversial subject, which they just cast a character based on a very controversial director. And there's a lot. I found the controversy almost fitting for the narrative of the movie. And I think I'm excited. I can't say enough about my excitement. This is probably my most anticipated film of whatever year it comes out, whether it's 2019 or 2020, whenever the release date is.
Yeah, man, I agree that he is one of the best directors I think of all time. Like you said originally, I would go to bat for that for him. But so it looks like the cast is going to include Leo DiCaprio, Brad Pitt, Margot Robbie, but not just that. Lena Dunham, Maya Hawke, Timothy Olyphant, Burt Reynolds, Damian Lewis, Luke Perry, Dakota Fanning, James Marsden, Clifton Collins, Keith Jefferson, Emil Hirsch, Tim Roth, Michael Madsen, Scoot McNairy, Al Pacino, and Nicholas Hammond, among others. And that's not unlike Tarantino. I mean, even Pulp Fiction, like even the bit parts are famous actors and actresses.
Yeah, I agree. That's a very Tarantino sort of role to put in there. And, you know, I'm excited for it. I mean, that's a great cast, minus Lena Dunham. That's a great cast.
Yeah, man. What the hell is she doing in there? I agree.
Talk about diversity. They got someone who wasn't even a human, so they got that shit figured out.
Yeah, I can't wait to see the way that they approach it. And I don't know. I couldn't really speculate too much, but I'd imagine, and I might have mentioned it to you before, they might go more the Summer of Sam approach, which is something that I read where it's like the BTK killer, the Zodiac killer was the backdrop for the movie, but then like he actually doesn't even cross paths with any of the primary characters in it. So one thing I know about Quentin Tarantino is he is going to go balls deep on this. He does not give a fuck about the controversy surrounding it. If anything, that only feeds his hype machine, and doesn't seem like actors and actresses are going to stop working with him anytime soon.
No, why would you? I mean, in my opinion, people correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe there's something I'm missing. I haven't seen anything that he's done that's so horrible that, like, I'm like, oh my God, he's not a Roman Polanski, speaking of it, you know what I mean? Like, he's not that type of person. I mean, and honestly, I kind of like his whole, like, yeah, fuck you if you guys are offended. I'm still going to make my movies. I kind of like that approach.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
He delivers every time.
Yeah, Big fan. Liked his last couple movies a lot. He says that he was going to make 10, I think, and then he was out, but we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, I hope not.
So, originally when I did the notes this morning, I had that Alec Baldwin was going to be playing Thomas Wayne in the upcoming Joaquin Phoenix Joker movie, which is going to be directed by Todd Phillips. It is a Warner Brothers DC film that supposedly exists outside the Warner Brothers universe. What's his fuck? Alec Baldwin was cast to play Thomas Wayne as a 1980s business mogul Donald Trump-esque character. There did come up to be some criticism about the fact that, like, dude, isn't this all Alec Baldwin does anymore? And here we are 3 days later, and it was just confirmed that Alec Baldwin is walking away from the project. Is this just more of the same out of Warner Brothers? What's going on, man?
I didn't even hear that. That's new to me. I knew he was... I think that's just more. I think that this is twofold. I think there's this weird thing in film journalism right now, quote unquote journalism, where they've been doing this weird thing where they like latch on, and I know why, because it gets some clicks. They latch onto anything that's going on with DC Universe and go, oh, look at this. There's a reshoot. And I'm like, every movie has reshoots. Like, you obviously don't understand filmmaking, and these people do. They understand filmmaking. If you're freaked out about a month of reshoots, that's not uncommon. You know, pick up shots and all. That's part of it. Mm-hmm. And so I don't know if he was ever actually officially signed on, or if he was more just signed up and in the talks, and someone got a hold of that, threw it out, and then they were like, no, we're going a different way, and now it's a controversy, which I think it could be a big part of it. I feel like people are jumping the gun on everything DCU.
Yeah, I could see that. It does seem like where Marvel will come out and make an official statement about casting, it seems like a lot of what we get from Warner Brothers is from, like you said, quote unquote, journalists, people that hear from unconfirmed sources a lot of times, or hear the slightest buzz that like, oh, Alec Baldwin was out at the Warner Brothers lot earlier today. That's got to be something, and then they'll run with it. But it also does feel to me like there was this foundation being built, not with all of the DC movies in my mind, but with this new Joker spinoff project, because of the amount of prestige that was attached to it. I was like, oh shit, this is Teflon. This is going to be the one that has, like, I guess, artistic integrity. And then the more I've kind of seen about the direction that they're going, I'm starting to kind of question that. That said, I don't know who could be a better Joker than Joaquin Phoenix. I wouldn't have thought about it ahead of time. Yeah.
Like, when they announced it, I was like, yeah, that makes sense. And they even so in the rumor I heard, I don't know if this is true or not, because people were mad about him playing like a Donald Trump type, and they're like, kind of have the campy. They said there's going to be some camp in it, which weird that all these bloggers who bitched about DC not being campy enough are now angry that there might be some camp in it. So that always cracks me up.
It doesn't seem like you can win.
No, you can't with these people, but apparently, so the movie is told from the perspective of the Joker. Mm-hmm. So Thomas Wayne is going to be how the Joker sees it, not who Thomas Wayne actually is. So I'm like, that is brilliant, and I love that concept. And general audiences are going to hate it. So Batman, if he is going to be in it, would be how he sees Batman, not who Batman actually is.
Yeah, I like that, actually.
I think that's brilliant.
Do you think that, and I've heard other people, pundits, kind of talk about it, do you think that this is a bad time? Whether or not you think, your personal feelings aside, do you think that this is a bad time to romanticize, a psychopath?
No, I don't. I think there's no bad time for art. I mean, we romanticize horrible behavior all day, and the same people who bitch about that then will go on and be fine with romanticizing horrible behavior, as long as it's quote unquote, somewhat in their general wheelhouse of ideologies. And I think it's art. If you're offended by it, fuck off, don't watch the movie.
The only reason that would give somebody like me pause is, because these movies are, I mean, obviously they're for everybody, and that's kids included, it's adults included, but that, the way that girls kind of idolize Harley Quinn, I don't see the negative that's done in society, but I can see how people would be a little bit gun shy to actually delve into it, because of the mainstream appeal of all of the Batman universe,
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I'm curious about it.
I mean, but Joker's always been so romanticized. I mean, even as the bad guy, he was the bad guy that everyone loved. Even in I like during Suicide Squad, people were like, "Oh, and how sweet, their romance was." I'm like, you realize he beats the fuck out of her. Like, it's an abusive relationship. Mm-hmm. This is not what they're like. Oh, and you see people posting stuff. I want a love life like this. I'm like, some of y'all bitches already have it. I know you do, because like. That's not a that's not a goal you shoot for.
No. And they toned him down for Suicide Squad. Fuck, like you said, it's so much different and worse in the comic books.
Yeah, he actually does seem like he loves her in Suicide Squad in his own weird way. And in the comics, I feel like he more uses her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right, well, let's go ahead and move into the weekly topic, which, as I mentioned before, this week is going to be about Rotten Tomatoes. It looks like I forgot to put the image in, so give me just a moment to do that real quick. I made some real cool graphics for it, And now I'm
Is
fucking...
it the Attack of the Killer Tomatoes?
Yeah. Oh yeah, you saw the thumbnail from
I did see
it.
that on Twitter. Yeah. I mean, I won't see any of the images until after, if I go back and watch this afterwards. But sometimes I'm just narcissistic enough to go back and actually do.
I haven't asked you if you've seen the graphics, if you knew what the show actually looked like.
No, I have no idea. I don't even know what you look like through half of this. I don't see you. I stare at a picture of me, or sometimes a picture of nothing most of the time.
So that's probably not the worst thing for you.
Yeah, like I don't know what anything's going on. I'm literally in the dark sometimes.
And I'm over here trying to do I'll get 5 minutes into a topic and then have to go back and put the graphic up. I'm like, fuck, I was supposed to be. So, you know.
I couldn't do what you do. No, I couldn't do it. I just show up and ramble on about stuff.
Ramble on. So yeah, let's see. I've got the actual headlines for Rotten Tomatoes pulled up here. This is officially from the Rotten Tomatoes page, and I lost it. Basically, they are implementing a new set of standards so that they can have a more diverse list of critics. Now, it doesn't come out and say what a diverse list of critics was, but I think a lot of people in America in general, in the film space, have different feelings towards Rotten Tomatoes. I guess anybody with anything. I kind of have a fondness for Rotten Tomatoes because it is partially responsible for how I got a lot of the picks for movies and recommendations. And, you know, back before I was even going and watching all of the movies, I was using Rotten Tomatoes to go back and watch back catalogs of shit that I missed, like top 50 horror movies or whatever the thing was. So I've had an appreciation. I try not to live by it like it's the Bible or anything, but there's been a lot of criticism about the way that the rating system works and the way that it skews the audience's perceptions about movies. I know we've talked about it a little bit, but for the folks at home, how do you feel about Rotten Tomatoes?
I think it's a cancer on movie making. I really hate it, and not because it's an aggregate. It's people go, oh, Rotten Tomatoes gave this a bad score. No, they didn't. You guys don't understand how Rotten Tomatoes work. There are issues with the way they compile their aggregate all their stuff together, where a C can be like a fresh, depending on literally 1 percentage point, or depending on what outlet it's from, or it can be a rotten, just depending on where it falls. So there's a lot of things that don't really give you an accurate representation. The thing that I hate about it is I feel like it's damaged films, because they even throw that on there, like 100% of Rotten Tomatoes. People should not listen to Rotten Tomatoes. They should find voices with similar opinions on film and listen to them. You might think everything I say about film is wrong. That's fine. Then I'm not the critic for you. That's fine. You might agree with 100% and be like, man, I have really similar tastes, or I have really similar taste to Jeremy. Then that's a perfect balance for someone. But just to go look at a thing and go, yeah, well, shorthand, it's going to be good, I feel like is very misleading. And I know for a fact there are people that look at a score, determine what they think about the movie, then go watch the movie. Yeah,
there is a fear of that. I wonder if I've fallen into that. Well, I can honestly say that I have fallen into that trap. I think it's impossible not to bring in some sense of expectation when you've been informed by, several people that you do respect and you do, kind of follow in that way. And I do agree with you that using the site to dictate your taste it's just homogenized. You'll never end up experiencing those things that speak personally to you. And everybody wants different things out of movies. Like some people go for the story. Some people go for the effects. Some people go for the dragons. And whatever that thing that you go to the movies for, it will never be wrong. And that's the thing about Rotten Tomatoes that doesn't get taken into account, is that these critics, they're going to see fucking everything. They're not just going to see the movies that they want to see. They're not just going to see a Ben Affleck movie because Ben Affleck's in it. And they're kind of looking at it through a set of critical eyes. And I don't mean to sound elitist, but I don't know that there's a place in film criticism for everybody. Is that bullshit for me to say that?
No, I would agree with that. Because, and I'm sure you've done this as someone, you're talking to someone at work who like sees 2 movies a year, and they're like, "No, you don't understand. This movie's really good." And you're like, "No, dude, you don't really get it." And that does sound elitist, but you're like, you don't put in the work that I do.
Right.
Even though the work is easy, it's watching movies, but you know, people don't put in the work, and there's a different understanding of film. I realize sometimes I can be a film snob. That's one of those things I realize. And like when I talk to people at work, they'll be like, "I love this latest blockbuster." I'm like, "This and this and this sucked about it." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, I'm the weirdo who watches too many."
Yeah, right.
You know, like for an average popcorn flick, yeah, to me the MCU is that. Would I absolutely, you know my feelings on it, I hate it. Is it bad? Not really. It's just very mainstream, homogenized popcorn fluff. But for those people who see 3 movies a year, 4 movies a year, like in the theaters, I totally get it. It's a spectacle. It's fun. I'm familiar with these characters. You don't really even need to give me a story because you gave me enough story trickled in through 10 movies. And I understand the appeal. I really do. So in situations like that, am I necessarily the guy to go to? Well, no. You know, and I think seats at the table should be earned in everything. You know, I don't think, and it sounds like they're going to. I do like that they're putting in podcasters and YouTubers on that, because I do think the medium is changing. A lot of those people do more views than written articles anymore, and get more views. But I do think, you know, it's good as long as it's earned. But I agree. I don't think that everyone deserves a voice in it.
I do, like, I'm looking at the criteria right now, and they're not just letting any old schlub in, like you said. No. A lot of it is podcasters and film reviewers online that do get more traffic than a lot of the fucking national publications. So obviously these people have earned their spot. The idea that Rotten Tomatoes itself is nefarious or is a cancer to movies, I guess, is debatable. But to me, I feel like the people who are the most against critics, I think, have a lack of understanding between the difference between a casual viewer. And I know a lot of critics nowadays will say we are fans, and that's true. That's why movies like Star Wars, that's why movies like Marvel movies do get overwhelmingly positive reviews, because this is people from our generation who are now writing their movie reviews and now have the most prominent voices in the industry. And so, I lost my spot. So I can respect the fact that people don't want to listen to critics, but I don't like the idea of people ostracizing critics or treating critics like they are out to get things necessarily. Now, that said, I'm looking at a graphic right now, and it is Star Wars, The Last Jedi, Gotti, Batman vs. Superman, and Sharknado, and I find this fascinating. The critics gave The Last Jedi a 93. The audiences gave The Last Jedi a 55. So what is it about The Last Jedi that resonated so much with critics, Caleb, that the audience didn't like?
I honestly, that is a tough one for me. I honestly have no idea, because to me, as a critic piece, it was okay. Like, as someone who does this all the time and sees a ton of movies, it was an okay film. I thought there were a lot of flaws with it. And I'm honestly, that one blew my mind. I honestly felt like some of it was fanboying out over it and fake outrage, obviously, on the audience side. But I just think on the critic side too, it was a little, I don't know. I don't know what it connected with. Because to me, as someone who watched that movie and was like, it's another Star Wars film, I didn't understand either extreme.
Can I give you my 2 cents?
Absolutely.
All right, you're gonna humor me here. So what about the fact that critics go to see every movie and audiences go to see the things that they want to see, the things that they're familiar with, the things that they grew up with? And the thing that The Last Jedi did, in my opinion, was subvert expectations, which critics love, because if you go in with the expectations that you've seen it before, then you kind of know the way things are going to plan out, and you get pleasantly surprised when they surprise you in those ways. Where the audience were devout Star Wars fans, they went in there to get their Star Wars movie and felt betrayed by the fact that it did subvert so many of the things that they wanted from it.
That's probably, and I know like a lot of people were mad about Luke, which I thought was by far the best part of Star Wars. I loved what they did with him. I felt like I like subverting expectations when it's earned. My problem with Last Jedi is I feel like a lot of it was subverting expectations for the sake of subverting expectations.
Couldn't agree more.
Take Emperor Snoke. You know, they were building to something with Snoke, and then they gave him the cheesiest, haphazard death just to kind of go, well, you didn't see that coming. You're like, no, I didn't see bad storytelling coming. You're right.
There was a lot of that where it's just like, oops, psych, you know?
Yeah, it was totally like a gotcha film.
Yeah.
Like, gotcha, this is what you said. And I was like, and I think you're right. You probably hit the nail on the head with that one. That's why, is because people see everything, so they went in going, okay, I know what I'm getting, and then got something a little different, more excited about it. And fans went in wanting something and didn't get that.
So let's go to the other side of the spectrum. Gotti, starring John Travolta, got a 0 by the critics and a 74 by the audiences. So for anybody who wonders if there's any manipulation on either side for Rotten Tomatoes, I think that both of these things illustrate. I think pissed off fanboys were able to get The Last Jedi down to a 55 in the same way that pissed off critics were able to get Gotti down to a 0 just because of their marketing campaign. Or is it really that bad of a movie that not one of the critics liked it?
I kind of want to see it now just because I'm like, is it that bad of a movie? Because I never saw it, because I have a hard time seeing a movie that would be that bad. But I mean, I've seen some that I'm like, wow, it's bad, you know?
Yeah.
But I don't know. But also too, if we go in now with the expectation of it's the worst movie ever and got a 0, and it's even not that bad, we'll be like, oh, it wasn't that bad, because again, you go in with your preconceived notions.
So then we're going to get over to the other side of this, where Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice got a 38 by critics and an 84 by users. And then check this out. Sharknado got an 82 by critics and a 33 by users. Does that make Sharknado a better movie than Batman v Superman?
According to a lot of people, it does, because a lot of people, that's all is Rotten Tomatoes. They that's what they go by. So, you know, and I think that's outrageous.
Kind of applying our same theory to what we were just discussing with expectations and all of those things. Why do you think it was that the audience responded so well to Batman v Superman versus the critics?
I think, honestly, and I hate to be this, I think there's a lot of Marvel fanboyism right now in critics. And I feel like there's this weird thing now. We were in this weird catch-22 with the age of the internet. In order to become well known in the age of YouTube, you need to say popular opinions, not necessarily well thought out, but opinions people agree with, so that they share it and they move on. Instead of doing that. Now, popular opinion, then I've seen some people rise to stardom who like, literally some people, and not all of these, but I've seen some people who literally are not that big of film buffs, who just love popcorn movies, rise to stardom because they give popcorn movies positive reviews.
Oh, yeah.
But, you know, and then people are like, they're a great movie critic. I'm like, they're really not. They're very average going, which is good. Again, find the critic you need. They're a very average growing movie critic. And so I feel like a lot of those people got into roles. And also I feel like, speaking about going in with expectations, people went in with the expectation of wanting to, and they've done this with the entire DCU. People want to see Marvel in the DC movies. You know, they want to see that. And then they go in thinking, well, and then they leave and go, why isn't this a Marvel film? Well, because it's not a Marvel film.
Yeah.
You know? And I feel like that has really seemed to hurt DC, in my opinion. And then even they gave, I think, Justice League a better score, and Justice League is garbage of a film.
I see, and there were things about Batman v Superman that I liked. I felt like they were trying. I feel like Batman v Superman was the most distinctive voice that DC has had for what their overall tone was supposed to be. Unfortunately, they lost a lot of it on the cutting room floor, and my dislike for it was it was really more from a narrative perspective that it didn't fit together smoothly.
Well, and one of those things, like, as someone who loves Batman vs. Superman, like, absolutely thinks it's a brilliant film, Are there problems with it? Absolutely. And the problems are the studio problems. Like, I don't think it's Zack Snyder problems. I think it's more, okay, we need to launch it. We need to launch a universe in one film. So instead of had Wonder Woman come out before Batman versus Superman, Batman versus Superman would be a much more beloved film.
You think?
Because that, oh yeah, absolutely. Because that second when Wonder Woman shows up and there's that music and you see her in her armor, that scene then has weight. You don't change the scene at all, but you change the history before the scene.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that.
And that scene would be, imagine that being a follow-up scene to the amazing No Man's Land scene.
Yeah.
Where you get to see her cut loose. And this is you've already seen her in action. And imagine that being a third film. Imagine Superman came out, so we got Man of Steel, then we got Wonder Woman, then we got a solo Batman movie. And then imagine Batman versus Superman. People would have loved that movie.
Yeah.
Because it would have carried weight. To me, that was poor planning, not necessarily the film's fault. I do see restrictions like killing Superman, having Wonder Woman, having Doomsday, all in like the third act is like, whoa, this is a lot. You're really trying to launch a franchise in the last minute. To me, that's a problem with the studio direct film. Like, to me, that doesn't seem like a Zack Snyder problem. That seems more of the studio head problem.
Yeah, I can see that. I think a lot of the, cramming in the setup for the Justice League movies and the little encrypted files of all of the members, and it tried to be everything to everybody all at one time, and I think that was my biggest problem with it. That said, again, there are a lot of things about it that I really liked, and from my perspective, is that Batman and Superman are so beloved, and just the opportunity to see Batman and Superman on the big screen, portrayed by some of the biggest actors in Hollywood, with some of the biggest budgets given to any movies. It's like fans of the comics are going to get excited about that shit, where I think critics are going to... We're a little bit more jaded. Just seeing Batman in a movie all of a sudden isn't enough anymore. And maybe that does... Maybe that kind of detracts from the fan experience, but I think it also kind of solidifies my love of movies, you know?
Well, I think you actually might be there because as someone who loves Dark Knight Returns, like is my favorite Batman book of all time, and Batman versus Superman is, for all intents and purposes, is Dark Knight Returns. There's so much of that in that film. Even like Superman going up and he looks like a corpse, and then the sun hitting him.
Yeah.
Straight out of the comic. The suit, of course, the fight is straight out of it. And so there might have been a little bit of fanboy me get to see that. And I'm one of those people who I'm a Ben Affleck is the best Batman we've ever had camp. And I think that's because I've always liked the grim, dark Batman comics. And to me, he captured the more borderline schizophrenic Batman, disturbed Batman, has issues Batman, and that's how I like my Batman. I don't like my Batman as the Bucky stepdad to Robin. Like, that's not who I like Batman to be.
Yeah, 100%, man, 100%. Then in talking about that, that's the way I remember '89 Batman until going back and rewatching it.
I still love Batman Returns. I think Batman Returns is phenomenal.
It's so fucking weird.
Oh, I love it.
In the best way. It's a weird one. It's a weird one. I like it a lot. But yeah, I remember back to seeing that Batman on the screen and just thinking like, wow, that's a tortured character. There's a lot of depth to him that obviously we didn't get out of the Adam West Batman, and I think a lot of that carried over into the animated series and just defined a lot of what I love about Batman. And I've never cared for the Robin stuff.
No, Frank Miller created the modern day Batman. I mean, he created that, which Dark Knight, which heavily influenced the '89 Batman, which then influenced the TV show, which then influenced all their lore. For Frank Miller, really like birthed the modern age Batman with his work. And yeah, the '89 Batman is. I always say, so you know how like Ben Affleck got so much heat for being announced. Could you imagine today in the world of the internet if they announced Michael Keaton as Batman?
Oh, it'd be over, dude.
Lost their minds. They'd be like, Mr. Mom is going to play Batman? Are you kidding me? And Michael Keaton's an amazing Batman.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and I think that, like, one of the first viral outrage campaigns was people sending fucking handwritten letters into Warner Brothers Studios to say, get him out of there.
And I think that's why I never freak out at casting and go, let me see the movie, because there, you never know who's going to turn in just like Heath Ledger. Heath Ledger would have been a big, like, he was just right before, and there was even some outrage. I don't know if you remember, they were calling him Hipster Joker when they first showed his character design. Like, people were mad about Heath Ledger's Joker. They were like, that's not my Joker. I don't remember. And ironically, people did that with Leto as soon as they saw the design based on it's not my Joker. That was not someone else's Joker.
Yeah, of course. Of course.
Yeah, I just think it's a fascinating time we live in. And I'm hoping film gets to a point where they ignore Rotten Tomatoes and they ignore the internet. It won't happen, but I would like to see it get there.
But with the amount of fucking money that it costs to go to movie theaters, would you recommend that people, and this is just 100% preference, would you recommend that people go into movies blind?
Not blind as far as like not seeing a trailer blind, but not reading reviews. Yeah, if you want to see it, go see the movie, make up your own mind. Don't have someone tell you it's a bad movie.
Yeah,
go see a bad movie.
I couldn't agree with you more. I do believe that's the way that you should go. And I pulled up some examples of movies that were panned by Rotten Tomatoes, or at least didn't get great fresh reviews, but were still beloved movies. Happy Gilmore got a 59% on Rotten Tomatoes. You a fan?
Mm-hmm. I actually like Happy Gilmore. I think
it's hilarious, dude. Yeah. My God. That one kills me every time.
The first Ninja Turtles got a horrible one review too.
Did it?
Like that's oh yeah, it's like at like 30%. It's worse. It has a worse score than the 2014 and the 2016 Turtles.
What?
And it was like, yeah, absolutely. Because, and honestly, I think it's someone who's a huge fan. It's pretty accurate. Like it's not a good movie.
Oh yeah.
But it's again, we were in a different time where people didn't check that.
The Life Aquatic, Wes Anderson, 56%.
That's one of Wes Anderson's best movies besides Isle of Dogs.
Oh, see, I still haven't seen Isle of Dogs, despite the fact that you said that it's fantastic, and I love stop motion, so I will be watching that soon, and I'll let you know what I thought about it.
Let me know. Best movie of the year, man.
No kidding.
Yeah, by far my favorite. It beat out Annihilation and A Quiet Place for me.
Home Alone is another beloved movie, one that I really enjoy. And no, it's not a great movie, but man, I thought it was beloved, and it's only got a 54 on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah, it doesn't shock me. There's one that I'm curious if you're going to get to that will blow people's minds. That's considered like a classic.
Basic Instinct's a 54. Don't really care about that too much. Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, one of my all-time favorite movies, is a 51% on Rotten Tomatoes, which just shows movies about masculine use and drug benders aren't for everyone, which, good, they shouldn't be, you know?
What a shocker.
Love that fucking movie, man. So good. Summer of Sam, which is one that I referenced a little bit ago, that's a Spike Lee joint. It's got a 51%. Thought it was a good movie.
That's a solid film. Like, I don't love it, but it's a solid film.
This is one I think you might like. I think you might have mentioned it. If it wasn't this, maybe it was Nymphomaniac. But were you a fan of Antichrist?
Never seen it.
Okay.
No.
I wonder who I was talking to about that, because I'm not a fan of this guy's work all that much. Lars Van Trier is he's a provocateur, I guess, but his movies are always a little too fucking seedy for me to enjoy.
Yeah, I've never even seen them, so, yeah.
Ace Ventura Pet Detective. What? It only got a 45? That don't surprise me, but it's good.
That shit only got like a .45.
Kingdom of Heaven. Now, this is one that I like, and Ridley Scott's a very hit-or-miss director, but I thought Kingdom of Heaven was really good. They staged some great action sequences. It's only got a 39. That's the night one, right? Yes, the Knights of Templar, the Christian Crusaders one.
I don't even remember it. I remember seeing it, but I honestly couldn't tell if it was good or bad.
It was a follow-up to Gladiator. So, again, it's like, oh, God, he's going back to the sword and sandal thing again, you know? So I think a lot of people were just like, it wasn't as good as Gladiator, so it didn't deserve the positive review, which is something you also see a lot.
Also, Sword and Sandal sounds like a hipster restaurant.
I want to go to there. They drink only LaCroix there.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly. And it all tastes like ass, just like this one.
This podcast is brought to you by LaCroix. Toilet water.
Toilet water. Carbonated toilet water. Don't ever buy passion fruit. Ugh.
MacGruber, another one of my favorite comedies. 47%.
I love MacGruber.
It's so funny, dude.
Yeah. Like, that is it. It is what it is. It knows exactly what it is. That film.
Yeah, that's a good. It's not trying to get an Oscar. I think this might be the one that you are referring to, the Boondock Saints, at a 20%.
No, that was one of them, but that is not the one.
Are you a fan of that movie?
I absolutely love Boondock Saints. It's like it's one of those. The scene where Willem Dafoe starts like doing the orchestra and the shots are being fired in slow mo. Brilliant top tier filmmaking.
No kidding. Yeah, I'm not as hot on it. I saw it post everybody telling me how great it was, which obviously we've talked about expectations. If everybody tells you something is going to be the best, it's hard not to be let down by it, right?
I was the other way. Like I just saw it either when it came out or like before, because it came out and then it like had no hype, and then like, I think a couple of years later is when it got really hyped up. Like and. Yeah, I remember seeing it like when it wasn't a big deal and just being like, wow, this is amazing.
I met Sean Patrick Flannery and what was the other guy? Not Norman Reedus. Norman Reedus was too big by then. But David Del Rocco. Okay. I met them at a couple conventions. Super cool guys. Still kind of riding that wave off of Boondock Saints because Norman Reedus just went on to get so goddamn successful. And I guess it's easy to tell why. I mean, he's I don't know. He's got an interesting look. I don't find him the most charismatic person on The Walking Dead.
No, I think he's a very good actor for what he does. He plays a certain kind of like grizzled, personality character, and he does that very well. He does it in the movie Air, and he's phenomenal in that too. But it's pretty much the same character. Like he does what he does, and he does it very well.
That's kind of how I feel about Danny McBride. The dude don't have a lot of range, but he's found his little sweet spot. Yeah. And it is always the fucking same. But Step Brothers only got a 55% on Rotten Tomatoes.
That movie is hilarious. That was one of the funniest movies of the time.
So, did it come up? Was the one you were talking about?
No. Jumanji is like a 30% or something like that on Rotten Tomatoes.
That's the original because people like the remake.
Yep, no, the remake's really high. The original, which is considered a classic, and most people will be like, yeah, it's a phenomenal film. And it's not a phenomenal film, but I have someone who, I told you, my wife's obsessed with. I watch it at least once a year. Going back and watching it, it's a solid film with some emotional depth to it. Like, it's a kid's film, but it's a solid kid's film, and it does not deserve a horrible Rotten Tomato, rating.
No, so I mean, this really does illustrate to your point that you can't just use it as the Bible. You can't use it as the end-all, be-all. I think if you're interested in the performers in it, if you're a little bit more into movies and you like the director in it, there's certain things that go check it out. Even if it lets you down in certain ways, you're gaining experience points as a movie reviewer, as a critic. Because if you only go and see things that are quote unquote good, then relatively everything's just everything, right?
Well, and then the thing too is like when you see stuff that's only good, instead of letting you imagine, and I don't know why we do this with film. I always say it's so weird. We do this thing where success equals quality or more people liking it. We don't do this with music. There's no person on the planet who will go, well, this person sold this much and this thing did this well when it comes to music, but we do it with film. And I think it's bizarre. I think it's so weird that that's the gauge now for good film. It's not the good gauge for art. Popularity is, if the gauge for art is popularity, then most famous art would not be famous today.
I mean, you're right in a lot of ways. I agree. And it's kind of destructive to the film industry to reinforce over and over that Disney and Star Wars and Pixar are the only good movies out there, which we do see consistently across the board. Yeah, they are a finely tuned machine. They know how to crank out quality, consistently good shit. But again, what is consistently good if you don't have the bad peppered in between to be like, oh, that was really refreshing to go out and see a movie that I didn't know I was gonna like,
Well, we might have a reverse thing going on with this where like we might have so much of this consistently good stuff that people will go see a movie that is quote unquote bad, and it'll be so refreshing to them that they'll start to enjoy those films, and you'll get more cult classics probably than ever.
Yeah, that'd be nice, wouldn't it? I know that you and I both grew up in a time that was like the new frontier for independent filmmaking, with your Kevin Smiths and your Quentin Tarantinos and your Robert Rodriguez, Wes Anderson. All of these guys really came into prominence in the 1990s, and that was kind of a revival of that 1970s style of filmmaking. So maybe we're due for that time again. I mean, do you think it's going to come back to the multiplexes, or do you think it's going to be reserved for home viewing at this point?
I think the multiplexes are dying in general. But I do think it's going to be home viewing, unfortunately, because nothing is better to me than going to see a movie in the theater. But it is what it is.
So I know we're running a little bit long here, but do you think that movies are easier to quantify or to critique than music is? Is music just too obtuse, too intangible to review or to critique, where movies have, I don't know, something more tangible?
No, I don't. I think they're the same thing. I think they're the exact same thing, just with different mediums. I think there's different criteria, and that's why different genres of music exist and they connect with people, because I do think you bring in all your life experiences into every all music that you listen to. And as someone who used to be a former musician, you're a musician still, and I mainly listen to rap. I always have, and people have always been like, well, you shouldn't, first of all, because you're white, you shouldn't listen to rap. I'm like, yeah, well, you got to understand my upbringing. Yeah, country doesn't make, I mean, you and me have talked off air, my upbringing. Country does not make sense for me to listen to.
Yeah.
Because you bring all your weight into it and your baggage, and music speaks to you on a different level. I feel the same thing about film. There's movies that I feel like, so one of my friends, I still haven't seen it, but he was talking about Sorry to Bother You. And he was like, it was phenomenal, and he's a black guy, and he was telling me, he goes, it's phenomenal. He goes, I think you'll love it. You need to see it. He goes, but honestly, he goes, I think there's something that you will probably not connect with the way I've connected with. He's like, because there's something about like putting my white voice on that I directly relate to.
Oh, sure.
And I agree with that. I'm like, there probably is something there that, as much as I love the film, I won't connect to it on a level. And that's kind of the beauty of art, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. And it's whatever moves you. You know, Andy Warhol said, art is what you can get away with. And I think that's brilliant, because when it comes to punk rock, it's about a feeling. It's not about technical musicianship. You know, you look at some of the greatest jazz musicians in the world, and it's just not accessible. So who am I to say that somebody shouldn't respond to AFI, or somebody shouldn't respond to Katy Perry, or fucking Tekashi 6ix9ine? I don't know, whatever the thing is. It's like it's so personal to people, and it does feel like we are getting inundated with we're getting programmed to like what it is that we like.
I agree. I feel like everyone's, especially with movies, and you're seeing it with music a little bit, but because of like YouTube and stuff, you're actually seeing a lot of random weird underground stuff pop up, and more because there isn't as big of a barrier to entry with music as there is for movies. I feel like you're seeing a lot of more indie artists you're seeing a mixing of styles and some really cool stuff happening in music, even though you don't hear it as much on the radio. But with film, you're seeing that, but it's going to be more same thing. It's going to be streaming is where you're going to find this really interesting stuff.
Yeah, and I guess I'm all right with that. Like you said, I love that communal experience of going and watching movies, so I love to go to the theaters and see them. It does feel like convenience is getting to be the big driving force behind everything, and I think that's Rotten Tomatoes can pick what movies you watch for you, because my God, if you've ever been on, when you're using Amazon Prime and you're using Netflix, it's like, God damn it, somebody just tell me what the fuck to watch.
Oh, I'll do this sometimes where I'll sit there and I'll watch like trailer after trailer after trailer. Next thing, 2 hours has gone by, and I'm like, well, I could have just watched a movie.
Yeah. Oh, all the time. Yep. And that I do like going on friends' recommendations. Like me and you don't always agree on movies, but I'm at least willing to humor it because I know there's some reason why, you know?
I like even hearing movies, like if you're like, I love this movie, go watch it. Even if I watch it and I hate it, at least I experienced it and even can talk about it. Even if we disagree, to me, that's half the fun of it.
Yeah, 100%. I think, me and you, we tend to agree to not agree, which I think is a pretty, it's a constructive thing. I think we both, like we've talked about before, we both bring our own thing into it, but I don't think either of us are really willing to fucking, die at the cross for something that's a matter of opinion,
Well, and my thing is, if you hate a movie I like, it's not an assault on my identity. I don't think you hate me, and that's what people do that's weird to me. It's like, if I say I hate a movie you love, you don't go, well, that means you hate me.
Yeah,
You're
yeah,
like, whatever.
That I have bad taste or whatever.
Yeah, like it's not, people take it as an affront to them and to their identity. Like, first of all, if your identity is, and this is coming from two people who talk about movies and have a weekly show, if your identity is so tied up in what you watch or what video games you play or what books you read, if that is your only identity, then you need to expand your horizons.
Yeah, there is a lot of that. And I think tribalism comes into it a little bit, but I do think that a lot of the Marvel and DC things is just how you choose to, are you a Coke or a Pepsi person? And I think that people who love DC Comics kind of look at these critics as people who are shitting on a part of their identity, and I can understand. Well, I haven't been on the receiving end of it as much, where if the next Marvel movie comes out and I happen to love it and it gets 20% on Rotten Tomatoes, I could speak to this from the other side of it a little bit better, but it's got to be frustrating to see consistently your beloved characters getting undermined by a community of people that really don't have much pool outside of this very specific community.
Well, that's the thing is, like, it's funny because I saw a thing where it's like, in the narrative that's always being spun, and I think WB bought into it. And I'm pretty sure, correct me if I'm wrong, but I read somewhere that you realize the first 5 DC movies made more money than the first 5 Marvel films. Now, yes, it was a different time and a different climate and all that, but I'm like, so these movies were considered tanks. The Marvel movies were considered successes, even though the first 5 DC movies made more money than the first 5 Marvel films. It's just, it's a weird thing.
Yeah. At the end of the day, if you want to listen to critics, do you? If you don't, nobody's got to. Like either way, it doesn't change the fact that obviously you are here because you're a fan of movies, and ultimately the thing that unites us is always going to be bigger than the thing that divides us. Like if we're all here because we all love movies, there's no reason to group up into smaller subdivisions than that. I don't feel,
Well, I think also too that's part of our generation. So you and me are from a generation where it wasn't like acceptable to be nerdy, where it wasn't acceptable to like be a movie nuff. So you and me are from the generation where like gamers, comic book fans, anime fans, movie fans, all united. Like we're all nerds. You're part of my group. And now, because all of the stuff is so mainstream, I do feel like you actually hit the nail on the head. We've broken down more into subgroups, and it's weird because I think you and me, it speaks to our age where it's like, you're a movie buff. So you and me, to me, we're the same. Yeah. Even if we disagree on every single movie ever, which we don't, but let's say we disagreed on everyone. We couldn't even find one movie we agreed on. We're still in the same camp because we're still movie. And I feel like if people, could look at just in general, society at large, look at what is similar about us instead of what is different, I think we'd be in a better place, both in movies and society.
Good place to wrap it up, Caleb. It's been fun again, man. Always a pleasure, actually. And we might have some news to announce to you guys soon. We've been kicking around some ideas. So if you have any suggestions for next week's topic, or if you would like to maybe even help us come up with a name for a topical podcast that we're going to be doing maybe every couple of weeks. We're just kind of trying to feel it out, see how it goes. I'd also love to hear what you guys think about the time that we are recording. Do you think is it convenient for you, I guess, is all I really care about, because I really do appreciate you guys stopping by to check this out. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, do me a favor, take just a second to do that. It really helps us to get our videos out there. If you enjoyed the video, take a second to click that like button. And I think I said if you enjoyed that video about 6 times in that sentence.
Even if you hated the video, please click that like button.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hit the dislike button. Hit the dislike button too. I don't care. You're still interacting.
Yeah, it's still exactly. It's still an engagement, and that's good enough for me. So yeah, on behalf of me and Caleb, I'm Jeremy. Be terrible. We'll see you next week. Bye.